Here's the thing about real estate. The barrier to entry is low. It's easy to become one. Being equated with we're all bad or we're all good is, those are two really poor uses of logic. I think you ought to change your mindset. Instead of picking the first person that answers the phone, when they answer, ask them some questions about this settlement, what their brokerage is going to do for you. Ask them some questions about the process. Aftermath. Here are the objective things that are going to happen because there's no way around them. And then I'll get to speculation. But the objective aftermath here is with the commissions now behind all of these doors, like there's a lot of ways that different brokerages are going to handle this. Some will just be silent. And what that means is in those cases, you may fall in love with a house, and that's great. You won't know how much your buyer's agent that's helping you is going to get. They won't know. And then you're going to put in an offer because no one has to tell you. And now the ability for you to compete to get that house is not only focused on if you can afford it / what your inspection terms are. Now we're fighting over if there's going to be a commission paid. Like now your buyer's agent's commission is an active part in this particular situation because it depends on how the seller decides, right? Like if the seller's already offering it, no big deal. But if they're not, or if they're being opaque about if they are, if they aren't, you may have a surprise at the very moment that you are submitting the offer around what the seller is willing to pay for your buyer's rep to, see the deal through. So instead of being wholly focused on you, there are situations in which now it's like your buyer's agent is kind of like, okay, like how am I going to get paid? Like, can you afford to make up a difference? We're negotiating here. We're also negotiating on the seller side. And meanwhile, the thing that's on the line is if you're going to get the house or not. It's a pretty ugly kind of dynamic to be forced into, but that is going to be one of the dynamics that are a result of this new world. On the sell side, the price of your home, you're going to have to think about it a lot more. Effectively, most residential deals are financed. And most of the time when houses are, not in distress and all that kind of stuff, but when people are selling their homes, they're generally selling for a profit, or breaking even, as opposed to a loss. Meaning that in the old way, the sale price had the value of the home along with the commissions for both agents as a part of what the sale price was. I feel like what I said was really simple, but it's not necessarily like driving the point home. People generally sold their house for an amount that would allow for them to make a profit, including all of the expenses that were there, paying off their mortgage, paying the realtors, plural. If you're a person who decides, I don't want to offer a commission to anyone, that is on the buyer side of the transaction, I want the buyer to be responsible for that. What you are going to be charged with doing is are you going to be greedy or not? That's the real thing. Because if you're essentially selling a house for $300,000, whatever the case is, you're selling it for a certain amount, like all the other houses, but all the other houses have, let's say everyone else is offering a buyer's commission. You're essentially asking for more money than everyone else. You might otherwise have the same type of house, and for the buyer to pay for that, and then pay for their buyer's commission. So you're asking them to pay commission twice, kind of. That's what I mean. Like commissions were always a part of the value of homes, like historically speaking. Every single one that reached an appraisal and closed the commissions were baked into that cost because most homes people are not taking a loss on. They're walking away even or for a profit, meaning the cost of doing business with those realtors involved was that was mathematically worth it, right? And so if you're removing some portion of realtor cost, then your house is, the value, you're removing value from what your house is worth. You need to think about listing for less if you're not going to offer that buyer agent compensation. The second thing on the seller side is you got to think too, if you are not going to offer a buyer's representative compensation, thinking about the chances of a buyer coming to you with extra money to come out of their pocket, because no one gives loans for commissions. Lenders give loans for the property. There's an implicit and indirect value baked in there, but they're not saying, it's just like when you try to add, I don't know, a TV or any kind of personal property, like when you explicitly do that in a contract, lenders are like, no, you gotta take that out. We're not paying for a play set. We're not paying for an above ground pool. We're paying for the value of this property. So when things are explicit like that, they make you take it out. This realtor commission thing is more indirect. It's sort of an understanding in the industry about the value of the house also has a bit of the cost of business in there. So do you want to alienate buyers who don't have X amount of dollars to pay their buyers? Or are you now marketing to a smaller pool? And this isn't like a trick question. If you're comfortable marketing to a smaller pool of buyers that can now afford their down payment, their closing costs, and paying the buyer's representative, the buyer's agent, then by all means go for it. But you will otherwise be benching a lot of buyers who otherwise did have the closing costs, did have the down payment, were credit worthy enough, liked your house, all of that kind of stuff. So that's another dynamic that you have to think about. It's just, what does it do to people who could have otherwise afforded your house for the price that you were listing your house? An interesting one there. The third thing that you're going to see are discount brokerage models. There's going to be a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, there will be more instances of brokerages saying, hey, you only have to pay us. That's it. It doesn't mean that your house won't get shown. I'm not saying that at all. But you are going to get what you pay for. They're going to say, hey, you can list for a lot less than everyone else is listing for with us. I don't know what kind of offers you get, but I would imagine a lot of them are still going to ask you as the seller, now that you're allowed to pay the buyer's broker directly, they're going to be asking for compensation anyway. And I don't know if you as a seller, hypothetically, will like that, not like that, but there will be more discount brokerages that capitalize on this idea that, hey, it's less with us. You're still probably going to get offers that are asking you for money. So was it really a discount, or did you? I don't know. And then the fourth thing I think is you're going to see attrition in the field. Less skilled realtors will not be here anymore. There's always retiring realtors, just like there's retiring everybody. But I think maybe some people might retire a little faster than they were anticipating. This is a seismic change. And so I think that there will be less people in the business. And how that looks from association to association or from state to state, who knows? Like my association is about 4,200 realtors. The Dallas Metroplex area is 38,000. So, it's just going to be different everywhere. Speculation. So I don't know that it's going to happen, but I could see logically like the steps of all these things potentially happening. So if you live in a market where there are a whole lot more discount brokerages where they say we're brokerage, we're not offering any sort of compensation when you list with us, like We don't care if you pay the buyer or not, or the buyer's agent or not. If you get enough of those, you're alienating the buyers, right? Meaning the people that could otherwise have afforded your house but don't have the extra cash laying around outside of being able to afford your house, right? You may be benching them because not everyone's going to want an FHA loan because of various reasons, higher interest rate. Some people don't want to pay PMI. Sometimes a house is too expensive to even fall under an FHA eligible home. So you may bench buyers in certain markets, and if you bench enough of them because of if there are enough sellers that don't want to pay buyers agent fees, you may be unknowingly creating a buyer's market in your hyperlocal area. So we're not talking about nationally. Everything's hyperlocal. I mean, we've even seen buyer's markets in places like Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm forgetting one other place. There were two spots. I feel like one of them was a little area in California, but this is hyperlocal. I'm not saying that everywhere will be a seller's market or everything will be a buyer's market, but in each individual market, there are going to be different companies making different decisions, and they will amount to certain outcomes. And I think one of the outcomes could be enough discount brokerages alienating enough buyers, meaning enough buyers are now not looking. There's a bunch of inventory, less demand, more inventory. That is a dynamic of a buyer's market. And so then what does that do for you as a seller? I don't know. And then I think another thing that could happen, again, this is speculatory as opposed to some objective outcomes, is that you just see more consumer to consumer sales. And because of that, I think you see a lot more lawsuits. Here's the thing. You don't need to sell, it's not required to sell a house with a realtor. That's not the law. It's advised, but it's not a requirement that you use a realtor to sell a home and to buy a home. It is required that if you do it yourself, that you still follow the law. And so if you're not really all that versed or all that patient to then get versed in the things that you need to get from my house is for sale to I have sold and I have my money, people are going to sue you because you're likely to mess something up in the middle and not know how to fix it. Because things go wrong all the time, but it's when you make the wrong decisions to fix them that kind of get you in trouble. Or sometimes it's stuff that you didn't even know you needed to know. Yeah. So those are two things I could see happening. Maybe some quick flips into buyer's markets in select little areas, and then more consumer to consumer sales, but probably an increase in some real estate related lawsuits too. Here's the thing about real estate. The barrier to entry is low. I've always said that it's not like a mystery. But it's like a driver's license. There are millions of people with driver's licenses on the road. 100% of them are not great drivers. So this idea that because it's easy to become one, being equated with we're all bad or we're all good is, those are two really poor uses of logic to come to either of those conclusions. There's always a spread. There's good teachers, there's bad teachers. There's good realtors, there's bad realtors. There's good doctors, there are terrible ones. Getting the license and getting the education is not that's not where you stop. There's experience, there's knowledge, there is specialization. I don't do commercial real estate. I have a real estate license. That doesn't make me good at commercial real estate. It doesn't make me good at people who love flipping homes. That's not the bulk of my business. That's not where the majority of my knowledge is. So, if you're the mindset that we're all the same, whether that's we're all great, like anybody can sell my house, or that none of you can, my conclusion here is that everything's about to change for everyone. The way that things have been done are just fundamentally shifting in a seismic way. And if you are on either extreme of how you perceive realtors, I think you ought to change your mindset. You need to be asking more questions. You need to slow down. Instead of picking the first person that answers the phone, when they answer, ask them some questions about this settlement. Ask them some questions about what their brokerage is going to do for you and why they should have your business. Ask them some questions about the process so that you don't feel blindsided by an outcome which was entirely possible, but maybe you didn't ask, or a bad realtor didn't bother explaining to you that it was a possibility in occurring. Slow down. I know we live in an Amazon world and you can get your groceries in 20 minutes and you can watch every season of Dallas on demand on Amazon Prime. Like, I get it. Everything's instantaneous, but these are massive decisions. For most Americans, they're the largest financial decisions they will ever make. It's not just a place to live, it's an investment. And if you're not asking enough questions, it doesn't mean that you ask every single one. Sometimes you don't know what to ask. Ask some broad leading questions. What should I expect in this process? What are you going to do for me in this process that earns this percentage? What's the other person going to do if I'm going to pay a buyer's representation fee? That makes doing that worth it. Mind you, you're paying with money that you got from the buyer. I know I've continued to say that, but I feel like it's kind of lost on the public that you're not paying money out of your pocket. You're paying money that you just got from someone who's been credit worthy, got through the due diligence, didn't make the deal fall apart. Like, I think you get my point. I hope you get my point. But ask more questions. You can be general and then things will click and you'll ask more specific things. But if you're just in a rush to get to the first person that answers the phone, the first person that gets back to you, that's a pretty terrible way to start. And it doesn't matter what you understand about the process. You're likely to have a bunch of surprises that are very unpleasant because you didn't take the time to understand your position in the market, how that person works, how things could turn out for you. So that's all I got. We're going to talk about something a little lighter next week, and I owe you some videos on land values, and that's what we got. Leave your comments, your questions below, and talk to you later.